Good Friday morning to you. Hope you had a good week. And we're going to do something again I don't like doing, but it's just the way they fell out. We're going to be picking up here this weekend as we finish up the week with the beginning of a psalm. I like to end on Saturday, start a new one on Monday, but they didn't quite break down that way this week, and so we will be picking up in the 35th Psalm. So if you want to find your place there, the 35th Psalm. And I'm going to talk about something here real quick. We've already came through two Psalms of this type. There are at least five Psalms that are what are known as imprecatory Psalms. And a lot of people today, when they read these Psalms, have a real issue. They struggle with these when many times in these Psalms, the author, typically David, is praying a very graphic and violent prayer. He is praying for there will be a very violent, graphic prayer for the destruction of some group of people in the Psalms, and it raises the question: how can God's people pray that way in what appears to be contrary to the teachings of Christ? Well, there's a couple issues that are important to keep in mind that I think we need to discuss for a moment before we dive into the psalm. One of them is when David was praying these prayers and writing these psalms, he didn't have the teaching of Christ. Again, you have to remember that these are Old Testament text, and then there are several other things that you need to remember about, again, an imprecatory psalm. One of them is that while you cannot ignore that it is a prayer for the destruction of someone else, it is actually also a prayer for protection. It is a kind of a kill or be killed world. And so by praying for their destruction, ordinarily when David isn't just randomly picking out people and praying for their destruction, praying for their death. When he prays these prayers, he is praying these prayers against someone who is trying to kill him. Someone who is after him, and so or trying to overthrow Israel as a whole. And so either way. Second of all, again, remember when anyone internally or externally, inside of Israel or outside of Israel, was attacking David, they were all heathen nations. And so when they attacked Israel or they attacked David, they were attacking God's people. They were attacking God's chosen king, the one that David, again, whether it was Absalom, someone from inside the kingdom, or someone or a Philistine from outside the kingdom. If they attacked David, they were attacking God's anointed, chosen king. And so they were literally going against God himself, against the will of God. When they attacked Israel, again, they were heathen nations who worshipped pagan idols. And so when they attacked Israel, the followers of the true God, they were literally attacking God. Again, you have to remember that there was, to some extent, it's still a little bit that way, but a totally different idea about war in those times. It wasn't just your nation versus my nation. It was your nation and my God versus your nation and your God. And so this was a battle of gods. And so it was a different mindset. And technically, if you look at the Old Testament, you may question in light of New Testament, but in the Old Testament, the teaching was that, again, that man didn't take judgment, that he allowed judgment to be handled by God. And so when the psalmist prayed, Lord, he's putting the judgment in the hand of God, and allowing Him. I think another thing it does, it teaches us that we can be honest with God, that we can tell Him how we feel. And David felt like God should, break their jawbones or whatever. That was the way he felt. And so he talked to God from his heart. And then finally, again, these psalms, these imprecatory type psalms, remind us of the holiness of God and how God hates sin. Again, when these prayers are prayed, they're prayed against the heathen, and so it shows us the seriousness of sin when we see a psalm that prays for destruction on the wicked. And that leads us to this psalm, the 35th psalm, and this psalm is a prayer when your friends turn against you, when your friends are those who become your enemies. And there's again nothing much that cuts much deeper than having a family member or a trusted friend, as we say, stab you in the back. And what David has is David has a situation. Again, this is when he was fleeing from Saul. David has a situation where he is again fleeing from Saul, and many of the warriors, the fellow soldiers who he had fought alongside of, who he had been friends with, were now the ones who were seeking his life, who were chasing him. And so some of his closest friends here have now become his attackers. And so we're going to learn in this psalm what to do, how to respond when those we love, our friends, our loved ones, turn against us. And what we learn is what David teaches us, is that when those people who we love the most turn against us, is particularly when we learn that the one friend that we have, that the Bible says sticks closer than a brother, the one that we can count on, is God Himself. And so while under attack from what had been his friends, David only had one place left to turn, the same place that you and I have, and that is to God Himself. And so he begins in verse 1. He says, "Plead my cause, O Lord, with them that strive with me. Fight against them that fight against me." And so David here, he says they strive against him, they fight against him, and so he's going to say that he needs the Lord to defend him, to stand in his place, to be an advocate, like a lawyer, to defend his case, to establish his innocence in their case. Plead my case, he says, like a lawyer. He's saying, prove to them that I am innocent of all the charges that they are making against me. Again, Saul was accusing David of being a traitor and accusing David of trying to overthrow the throne, when all David had ever done was actually defend Saul's position on the throne. And so he says to plead against them, and then at the second half he says fight against them. And so he is calling on God to step up for him and to protect him in this situation. And he says in verse 2, "Take hold of shield and buckler and stand up for my help. And so he says, let's go on and look at verse 3. He says, draw out also the spear and stop the way against them that persecute me. Say unto my soul, I am thy salvation. And so David paints a picture here of God as warrior, to take the shield, the buckler, the spear, and to be and to step forward, to come up as a warrior, as a soldier who fights on David's behalf. We've talked about this before when he says the shield and the buckler. The shield and the buckler were two different pieces of defensive weaponry that they had. The shield was the small, and you've probably seen this in old Roman type movies. The shield was a small, just like a handheld shield that they would use in hand-to-hand combat. That when somebody swung or stabbed at them, they could move that shield around quickly and block. I'm not sure how well that shows on the camera here, but they could move around quickly, and they'd use it in hand-to-hand combat. And the buckler is a shield as well, but it was a larger shield that they were able to get completely behind. For example, if somebody off in the distance was shooting arrows, they could get down behind the shield, and certainly they could use the small one too, I guess. But probably better to duck behind the large shield. And so God says, David prays, said, Lord, you be the shield, you get the shield and the buckler, the hand-to-hand combat, the far off enemies. You use the spear, the shield, and the buckler are obviously defensive weapons. But then he says, take the spear. And an offensive weapon, and that would be obviously a weapon you'd use to stop someone that is charging at you. And then the phrase that I really want us kind of to focus on today, and it took me a while to get here because I think all that background is important. But look at David's last words in this section. Say unto my soul, I am thy salvation. David, he cries out to God, and he says, Lord, I just need to hear you say, I need to know, I need the assurance of your protection, the assurance of your salvation. And one translation, one commentator on this says, where it says, I am thy salvation, is an abbreviation for I am Yahweh. I am the covenant-keeping God. I am the God of your salvation. And so what a great statement for us here. David says to him, be my attorney, be my warrior, fight for me, and show my innocence. Lord, what I really need to hear is I really need to hear your voice today, telling me that you are on my side and that everything is going to be okay. I think most of us can identify with these few verses of David, this situation in David's life. All of us go through times when I think if you live long enough, you'll have a time when someone, maybe family or friend, that you never thought would turn their back on you, never thought would leave your side, is the very one who attacks. And there are times in our life when the best thing we can do is just step back and sit down and let God fight our battles. When we've been attacked unjustly on several occasions, David had two for certain. The Bible shows us that David had an opportunity to kill Saul. He could have killed Saul and solved this problem. But on two different occasions, David he left Saul alone. He left the judgment up to God. He let God do the battle. And one of the lessons we learn, I think, from this psalm was when we know we're innocent and we know we've done nothing wrong, we can call on the Lord. We can say to the Lord, Lord, I need you to be my attorney. I need you to vindicate me, and I need you to fight for me. And Lord, I need to hear your voice and know that you're on my side. I hope today that whatever you face, whatever battles you go through, God will make himself real to you. His presence will be overwhelming, and you will hear his still voice telling you that he is your salvation. All right, I hope that helps you through today, and we'll see you back here first thing tomorrow morning.